All right, so welcome to Be the Market Expert, and we're getting off of a holiday, and yet I think there's some interesting stuff. So, first and foremost, let's jump into this article from Inman, and it says sound off on clear cooperation ahead of the NAR committee meeting. So, committee meeting is set for the 12th and the 13th, and so we're talking like 2 weeks from now. And clear cooperation. So, clear cooperation was an attempt by NAR to go through, and this is what it said. It said if you're going to put something on the MLS, or if you're going to put a listing out there, it needs to go on the MLS. And the reason why they did this was so that brokers couldn't double in deals, these pocket listings. And it wasn't that like they truly wanted to stop them, but what they were trying to slow down was agents using this as a mechanism to just farm buyers. All right. So what they were seeing was these agents were dropping signs in the yard. And from dropping the signs in the yard, they were just taking all the phone calls they weren't putting on the MLS. So NAR came out and said, hey, if you're going to put something, if you're going to do a listing, you're going to do whatever, you actually have to, within one business day, actually put this property out there. So when we're going through and we're looking at this, it caught a lot of heat. There's a lot of big brokerages out there right now that actually want to be able for this rule to go away. And it's kind of interesting to think about because, firstly, I don't think this would hurt like a Keller Williams. I don't think this would hurt a Remax and EXP, right? We're some of the largest brokerages in the world, and KW, we are the number one brokerage in the world, right? So if this rule were to get reversed, I don't think it truly hurts us whatsoever. But I get what NAR's done here. What NAR is really thinking is that if an agent goes and they have a conversation with their seller and says, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I got a vast network. How about you give me a couple days and let's just see if I can get you like the best offer with before we put this thing on the MLS." And they put the sign in the yard and they're just fielding all these offers potentially, and then they present it to their client, because this is what used to happen, right? And this is what NAR did is, as a listing agent, this is what the thought process was. You put the sign in the yard and you get a phone call and it's like, hey, Charles Coleman, KW, how's it going? Hey, Charles, I'm doing well. I'm calling about one of your listings. Awesome. What listing are you looking for? And they're like 123 Main Street. And you're like, awesome. Let me look that up. I have a couple listings at this point. Let me look that up for you. While you're waiting, if you don't mind me asking, are you currently working with an agent? And the thought process behind clear cooperation is this: if the client was like, or the customer was like, yes, I am working with an agent, and it was like, oh, yeah, well, showings will begin in 2 weeks from now. And if they weren't working with an agent and it was like, yes, I'll be able to show you that house today at noon, does that work for you? And that was the whole reason for clear cooperation to actually turn on, was because stuff like that was happening. And it didn't seem like it was in the seller's best interest, because if it was on a free marketplace, what would those offers look like? But people are obviously, they're fighting it on the other side of things right now. They're actually saying, no, this is actually antitrust, the current way that you have it, saying that actually must be put on here. That would be truly against kind of what we're looking for. So it'll be interesting. We'll kind of see what this looks like. The DOJ is obviously into it right now, and we'll kind of see how these things shake out. Other interesting things in the news is this new platform. All right, so this is the platform that came from the Sitzler case. And so this was truly the lawsuit that we've been in for many, many years, and that finally came to fruition earlier this year, where we're talking in the tune of tens of millions of dollars paid out. And what was interesting is, after this lawsuit happened, the plaintiffs that were responsible for this lawsuit started their own competing flat fee brokerage site. which is very interesting. So here's their site, and you can see it's in beta version. They took after this win and after kind of doing whatever, they have created this website. So if we look at it, it's going through, and let's look at the FAQs because I think the FAQs are interesting. So it says their mission is to safeguard home buyers from the excessive fees typically charged by real estate agents. And it says import your listing link, which you get from real estate agents, and get a push button home tour or purchase offer from a local real estate agent for a flat fee of $49 per tour or $199 per offer. Okay. Our average customers save about $15,000, which is equivalent to 1 year mortgage payments compared to a traditional 3% agent commission. All right, so this is what's super unfortunate. If we were to look at this thing, we have a plaintiff that pops up and they says, I was taking advantage of real estate agents and I was not able to negotiate my commission. And now we want to stop this so it no longer happens anymore because not being able to negotiate commissions should be against the law. And then the lawsuit goes through, they win, and he says, you know what? I am going to create a website where there are no more negotiations for commissions, and we're going to go to the complete opposite spectrum of this. So it says this is in 69 states, territories, districts, and provinces of the United States and Canada. Is this a brokerage? No, it is not, because all they are doing is they are being the conduit. And if we were to go through, it says, how do you search properties? Well, you take the listing sites that the real estate agent gives you and just paste it in here, and we'll go find it for you. And then we're going to connect you with real estate agents that are buying into this program, which, oh my God, I hope that real estate agents truly aren't doing this. But here's their packages. To go tour a house is $50, which you pay up front with no further obligations. So they are truly all this trash that has been talked about Zillow and how Zillow is going to truly turn real estate agents into key turners. Like these people just won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and this is what they're looking to do at $50 a key. So $49 per tour, no obligation or commissions to that real estate agent later. If you want the agent to write an offer for you, it's $200 to send the offer. If you want just an AI powered offer, which I'm guessing like if you just want this company ChatGPT to do it for you, it'll be $99. And if you want an exclusive agent package, which is flat fee commission, non-negotiable again, right? Because keep in mind, this whole lawsuit that these guys put forward, the plaintiff literally said, I got taken advantage of. I didn't know I was able to negotiate, and we should be able to negotiate commissions, and this is not fair. And then they turn around and they start a company where you don't get to negotiate. It's just right here, and this is black and white on the non-negotiated fee structure for $1,799 flat fee commission payable at closing. You can opt into our exclusive package, which includes a maximum of 5 home tours and 2 offers. This looks like Trulia, or not Trulia, Trailora, all over again. Kim, I see you reaching for the mute button. I feel it.
I just don't understand it, how they can, this is what the lawsuit is all about.
This is what the plaintiffs hit us for, is they said it was not fair that we were unable to negotiate our compensation. And then they literally create a website where you don't negotiate compensation. It is wild. It is so wild. And on top of that, right, we're getting a new, I feel like a new publication every week where these lawyers and watchdogs and attorneys and these groups are popping up every week threatening that if we don't do what they told us to do, they're going to come after us again. And yet they're being so underhanded over this. What gets more interesting is
they're thinking that it's okay because the price is so low that nobody's going to really give a crap at this point, no matter they're doing the opposite of what they should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, and if I'm looking at this thing, I don't even know how legal this is, especially when we're talking about, Colorado real estate. Like we have a minimum services that we have to offer as a transaction broker. So even as a transaction broker capacity, this isn't legal. We are not allowed to charge a client to write an offer. That would be the illegal practice of law. You are not allowed as a real estate agent, at least in Colorado. I don't know about the other 40, 49 states, what their laws look like, but in Colorado, it is against the law to charge someone to write a contract. That is a lawyer's job. So, and I think that's why they worded it this way, to actually send an offer, not to write it, to actually send it, which still, anyways. What gets interesting is this next line, because if we think about the East Coast, they're attorney states. They use lawyers on most of the coastlines. And so it says this: well, even if you do all this, you're still going to have to probably use a lawyer. And those vary typically by region. So this does not include your lawyer fees. But don't worry, it's still going to be well below the fees charged by a typical real estate agent. So really, they're just going over. They did break down some math, saying that you're gonna, save $15,000, which is approximately like $150 a month. I think is their math on a $500,000 home if you're not paying 3%. It does go through and says, "Are there any other hidden fees?" And like, no, outside of standard closing costs, third party fees, any other offer fees, or any other tour. Like it just goes through. And it's like, no, but just be aware of there's probably other fees lurking somewhere in the woods. So very interesting. I'm curious to see how this thing plays out. Do I think it gains traction? I can't imagine. I don't know how many real estate agents are excited to go raise their hand and to go get paid $50 per tour. I mean, I guess there are agents that would probably do this. I hope there's not yet. That's probably real. Who knows if another company picks up this product and turns into the exclusive user of this group, right? So we'll see it. We'll see how this thing kind of plays out. All right, let's get into some real stuff that is a little bit more interesting. Housing inventory falls as mortgage rates drop. So Housing Wire rear view facing data. This is September 1st by Logan Motoshami, the lead analyst for Housing Wire. And he starts it out by saying, have we seen the peak in housing inventory for 2024? The best part about 2024 has been that the higher mortgage rates have created an inventory buffer, so the economy gets softer and rates fall. We have many more homes to work with than we had in 2020 through 2023. And again, if we look at 2020, the reason why we didn't have any inventory is because they were selling very, very quickly. The beginning part of 2022, same thing. They were selling very quickly. Interest rates started spiking, and we saw less inventory hit the market because rates were so high that who was wanting to sell their house and be locked into a higher rate when your dollar didn't go as far because of inflation and interest rates. So we're looking through the data and he's comparing these weeks. And so it says, despite what has happened with inventory in the last few months, 2024 has a positive story because we got off to historic depressed active inventory levels. And as part of team higher rates, which is what he is in 2021 and 2022, this is precisely what he wanted to see. And so when we're looking at this thing, weekly inventory changed last week. Inventory did fall from 704, 744 to 704, 335. So not huge. That's not a huge number. But if we were to look at this number versus last year, the exact same time, we're 200,000 homes more. We have 200,000 more homes on the market today than we did last year. We'll look at that. My next tab is going to dive into that a little bit. It says the all-time inventory bottom in 2022 was 240,000. So we're nowhere near that. And the yearly peak for 2024 was actually 2 weeks ago. All right. So 2 weeks ago, we actually had the highest inventory. And so that would make last week the second highest inventory. And if we were to look back in 2015, 1.2 million homes. But here we are. Here is your visual representation of 2024. We have been climbing and climbing and climbing, and here we are, 38% more inventory now than what we had last year. We are still nowhere near pre-pandemic levels of 2019 through 18. yet through the pandemic levels, as well as 2022 and 2023, we are much, much higher. So as we're looking at this thing, national single family new listings, right? So here, just the new listings data coming on, we're kind of just right in the middle. We're right in the middle of 2022 and 2023 here, sitting at 58,000 new single family listings. Price cut percentages, 39%. And so here we are. We are this weird line. So 2022, we get that, right? This is when homes were overpriced and the interest rates changed. And then people realize, oh God, these interest rates aren't really going back anywhere. It's time to start doing some price cuts because I'm motivated. I need to sell my house. Well, it's kind of interesting to kind of look at this line as we're going through here, and we're seeing that we've crossed it. We've been higher and higher and higher. We're having so many price cuts, and you just have to question yourself, why are there so many price cuts happening, right? Like, we've been living in these levels for 2 years with some of the highest interest rates we have had in recent years, with the highest home prices we have had in recent years. So we have an affordability issue. What data lines are people using over the last 2 years, right? 2022, 2023, and today, to where somehow we have more price cuts happening today? Like, I don't get it. I have no clue what, I mean, unless we're letting the sellers, which could very well be happening, unless we're letting the sellers dictate the home price, right? Which is their right, right? We let the home sellers pick their prices. But are we not giving them data? Like, are we just sending them to Zillow and they'll be like, yes, based off of Zillow 3 years ago, the neighbor sold for this, so you should be able to get this, even though interest rates were at 3% then. Interest rates are more than double. Let's list your home at this price and let's see what happens. Because that's the only world that makes sense to me on how we have such high price cut percentages in this current environment. Weekly pending sales, kind of interesting, 368,000. It says they're looking at this Altos data, and it says there is no growth in the week-to-week data, and we are starting to create a more significant gap in the year-over-year data. He says he's writing this in caution and stating in August last year, mortgage rates began to head towards 8%. So we will have some super easy comps to show growth in some of the data lines this year, year over year, going out. So again, interest rates are dropping. We have more inventory. We have lower interest rates. We have a bigger population of people. And historically speaking, we are in the slow season, right? Like, we are in the slow season for real estate buying and selling, historically speaking. Yet, I think 2020 broke a lot of things. 2020 went through and they put a lot of things on its ear. And we're going through, and it has changed the rules on how, real estate is bought and sold. So with how compressed the market has truly been over the last couple of years, we're going to see what seasonality coupled with lower interest rates does. It could get very, very interesting. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about mortgage spreads. We do know that they got better, and at some point, last week they did cross like the mortgage rates, and the Treasury, actually the yield went up and the mortgage rate still went down, right? We can actually see that right here, which doesn't truly typically happen. So that's good. Purchase application data, and he wants to preface this one. This one's kind of funny. And he's been having a lot more conversations around this. I don't know if anyone's listening to his podcast, but he's been talking about this more and more and more. And so he says purchase apps are very seasonal. We know about this. The heat months are the second week of January to the first week of May. After May, volumes always fall. Okay, so there is our seasonality. He just said seasonality nationwide, January to May. It says the last 12 weeks have been the best 12 weeks of purchase apps for the year, primarily due to the year being negative on a weekly basis. Okay, cool. So this is tallest pygmy kind of stuff, right? He said, so we've had 12 positive prints, and here's the thing: all the other data has been negative. So not a huge bar that has been set here. The last two rates the last two times that rates fell in 2022 and 2023 around the middle of November, closer to the seasonal volume push, the positive growth in purchase apps was stopped when rates went higher. Okay, cool. So what we're seeing is this: the music will only stop based off of historic data is if interest rates start to climb again, which there's no indication that they will. All right. There's nothing looming out there. I know that the Fed said some crazy things recently, yet they're just really just trying to cover all their bases, and they all just have like a hot mic every once in a while. Typically, purchase apps look forward 30 to 90 days, right? We know we were in a 90-day business. We have this conversation. And he has discussed before that we don't see how existing home sales can have sustained growth unless rates get below 6%. That's how the builders have been able to grow sales since the lows in 2022. And we know this, right? Like this has been a great market for new builds. And not that they've pushed more deals through than resales. Like resale market is always going to be our biggest market. Yet they were able to cut into that market share a little bit. We're talking single digit market share. Like this is not an astronomical number because they've been able to go through and offer better rates. Like the builders are their own bank, and they've been able to do something that a traditional lender cannot do. So we're going to see the impact of this purchase application data over the next 30 to 90 days. So what that tells us is, do we know all of our potential buyers that are going out and speaking to lenders without consulting us? Because in the next 30 to 90 days, is when we're actually going to be seeing this purchase application data come to closings. So what are we doing? So here we go. We see this little positive piece right here. We're still kind of in the basement. So that's kind of where we've lived for a very long time, is in this basement. And mortgage rates have fallen more than 1% recently. We'll kind of look at that here in a second. And we're in jobs week. So this is the week that we're in. So after Powell's baby pivot, and he's given it a baby pivot, right? And the baby pivot was this. It's when he finally said that we're probably going to cut rates, right? That was the baby pivot. And a full pivot would have been this. It would have been, hey, we're cutting rates no matter what because this needs to happen. This is, hey, we're probably going to cut rates next month. And there's no reason for them to back off of that at this point. And we're in that month. So we're talking 13 days. 13 days, we should start to see some rate cuts. And they've been dropping without them. That's what's neat. So he had his baby pivot in Jackson Hole. And when we're going through, this is jobs week. So this is one of the more important. This is the important week that we're in right now. So if we're going through and we start to see jobs lower than what they predicted, this is when the full pivot's going to come in. All right. So when we're talking about this baby pivot, the baby pivot is, hey, like things are getting weird. We're probably going to start cutting rates here soon. Expect it. And a full pivot would be, hey, we are cutting rates and it doesn't matter what is happening, we're going to cut rates. Well, this is what we can say. We know that if they come through and these job numbers are worse than they thought they were going to be, the Fed will probably do a full pivot and not wait to that date. They would probably start dropping rates sooner. So we're going to look and see what this is like. And we're not championing this, right? No one on this call is like, dear Lord, please let Americans lose jobs. Like that is not what this is about yet. If people do start to lose their jobs, the Fed will have to drop the rates, because that means that more people are not being able to pay wages. They're having to lay off people, and that is not good for the US economy. That it starts a big spiral which affects the world after a while. All right. So your next one says 8 states now have more unsold inventory than in 2019. All right, so here's your map. And what we're looking at is the dark red. That means way less inventory. The pink means more inventory than 2019. And the gray means you're in Colorado. So the gray is us. And it's saying that we are actually trending towards being and having more inventory than we did in 2019. So we are the only gray state on this list. And it really means that our inventory is starting to creep up higher than it was in 2019. So pre-pandemic levels. And they did do a little blurb right here somewhere. And it was around outbound migration, I think, right here. It says Colorado, which still has fractionally fewer homes on the market than 2019, but is the next in line to cross over. And it says has property tax relief on the ballot this fall because homeowners are paying so much more in taxes after the sharp rise in home prices over the last 4 years. So we know that with our insurance. Our insurance is crazy, right? We can blame David for that. And one of the the biggest thing, one of the David heard me. One of the biggest things that we have to look at is obviously home prices in Colorado. They're high. Our insurance in Colorado is high. Taxes in Colorado are high. We have so many things that it makes Colorado so unaffordable. And this is some of the things that we see is we see kind of these multi-generational housing um, definitely take an impact. And we also see people where, especially with the ability to work remotely in a lot of professions these days, or if you're in an industry that translates into another state pretty seamlessly, we're seeing those people leave Colorado, right? Like if you can go through and you can keep your pay about the same, especially as remote work, right? Like if you can go and live in Colorado and you're making, $150,000 a year and you're doing it remotely anyways, and you move over into the Midwest or even to like the Southeast, and you're still getting paid $150,000 and the home prices are a third of the price, it makes a lot of sense to move. And so that's kind of what we're seeing right now. So we are seeing inventory pick up more and more. And so this will be very interesting to see what happens, especially as our rates are coming down. When we're talking about interest rates, we know Colorado, we are disproportionately affected because of how high our home prices are. There is nothing there, but let's look at interest rates. So here is your 3-month visualization from June 1st to August 30th of interest rates. And obviously I wanted to start off in 3 months because it looks way more dramatic this way. Like this is what we want to see though. And when we're going through, we have seen it go from conforming at 7% down to 6.3. And when we're talking about FHA, we're talking 6.7 down to 6.1. These are pretty big swings. If we're looking at just today, we're at 6.36 for conforming and 6.13 for FHA. So that's like today's numbers, but your graph is always like a day off. Actually, it's probably 2 days off because of the holiday now. If we were just look at 1 month's worth of data, it's still pretty decent slide. Like it's not as huge after that one big dip that we did see. And it has, come up a little bit. But in the grand scheme of things, like as we're looking at this thing, as we're looking about talking about the Fed meeting about to happen, when they could be dropping rates, as we're talking about having conversations with our lenders and knowing what kind of incentives that they're offering, people that have been sitting on the fence, now might be the time to move, right? Like now might be the time to actually go through and see what it looks like to be able to purchase a house in 2024. Like there's been so many people on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to fall. I think that we're pretty much already past the housing crash, the silver tsunami. I don't think a lot of people are rolling the dice on that anymore. I think that's kind of disappeared a little bit. Yes, there are some YouTubers out there that are still selling doom and gloom with monstrous channels that they're just calling for this and calling for it and calling for it. Yet, I think most rational people understand that there's no huge relief coming, and that this is kind of where we're going to live. So if we're talking that 6% is the where it makes a whole lot of sense for people with the Fed and the rate cut coming, plus some incentives that our buyers, like if we know what we can do and help people win, like now is the perfect opportunity. There's more inventory. We have a lot more inventory in Colorado. The dollar is about to go a little bit further than it has in the last 2 years. So what are we doing to have these kind of conversations? And then Alto's data. This is always fun. We're looking at ARRR too because Arvada. And when we're looking at this thing, you can kind of see that a lot of these numbers have taken a little bit of a dip, except for inventory. Inventory is going the other way. So median list price still $710,000 in Arvada, ARRR2. The median list price of new listings is sitting at 700,000. Our price per square foot, $377. This is a little bit, looks like a little bit lower of a number. We have average days on market, 58. So that's good, right? We're seeing the average days come down. We're seeing median days come down to 42. Yet if I'm still looking at this thing, if I'm pricing the home wrong, we're still sitting on the market for 2 months, right? Like these are homes that are not priced correctly. And that is taking all the outliers into consideration. If we look at median, they're taking the outliers out. And so we're sitting at 42 days. We're sitting at a little bit over a month if we're pricing the home correctly. Price decreases is down, so 45%. If we were to go back and look, 45% versus 39.3%. So we're still above the national average. Yet if we were to look back, I think this was like a couple weeks back. Yeah, look, 68%, almost 69% of all homes in Arvada ARRR2 were taking a price cut. Now we're down to 45%. So either we're having better conversations with our consumers, or houses that are coming onto the market are better price. So 45% price increases. It's kind of flatlined. And again, like this isn't a super exciting number because this is new builds, right? This is phase 2, phase 3 of homes kind of hitting the market, and this doesn't really impact us. What's also interesting, like as we're thinking about this, we know that a bunch of homes hitting the market isn't really ever going to do anything for us, right? The new builds are never going to put enough inventory into the ecosystem for us to be able to have a home for every American, right? They are a for-profit company. They are not a nonprofit. So we're not going to ever really see any huge swings. And again, if we were to see a big swing, that actually just means that they are building more houses and they're raising the price of their builds because of how much activity that they're having. And again, they're only going to release activity so that they're making money. Relisted homes 10%, so kind of a little bit flat right here. We're going through. We know this discerning buyers are going through with the prices of where they are. They're being a little bit more picky. Inventory, it's a score of a 31. We are seeing median rent go down a little bit. We're at 29. We were at 31 for a little bit. Then we've had 2 weeks of 2,900, and they gave us a market action score of 49, which puts us still at a seller's market. Yet we're not as strong of a seller's market as we were last month.